nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, taking turns, like a little book club for music. It's a fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave, and my body is a dystopian nightmarescape. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got David.
I just want everyone to know that that shit slaps.
Yes. We've got Drew.
Hey.
Yes. And of course, still with us. We haven't driven him away. We haven't scared him away. We've got our guest fourth, none other than Matthew Squiggles Walton. How you doing, Matt?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah. We're here to talk about music, of course. We're talking about an album. The provider of the album is Drew this week. Drew, what have you got? What have you brought for the class this week?
Well, I've been thinking about bringing this guy for a while because he's a musician that has done a lot of different stuff, and I think most of it's pretty dang good. Really, really great. Fairfield, Connecticut's own John Mayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I forgot to say the album, which would be Room for Squares.
That album, the album with the songs. Let's talk about. I would say there's probably, at least this time, there's going to be some expectations on some level. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Very little. Which is to say, that would be my knowledge on John Mayer. I had heard that he is capable of, as they say, slanging a mean guitar. But I was expecting some songs that might have a lot of acoustic guitar in them. Probably since this album was with songs from the late 90s and early 2000s, I was expecting to hear maybe a little more than a touch of influence of the Dave Matthews Band on this album in particular. And I suppose we'll get into that as the podcast continues. So I was expecting some songs, some acoustic guitar, a lot of it, and a dude singing about some stuff with some occasional flashes of guitar technical ability.
Yeah. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I've listened to quite a bit of John Mayer. The first album I think I listened to was John Mayer Trio. I think the album's called Try. A friend of mine was like, okay, yeah, you know John Mayer, which I didn't, but he's like, you got to listen to this one, and it's great. And from there, I just continually bought CDs at half price for $1 as I found them. And so I have a small collection of John Mayer stuff, including Room for Squares. Also, he's freaking great in Dead and Company.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a couple of times, and yeah, I've seen him. He definitely is a fan of that. He is a big fan of bluesy guitar licks and like all that stuff and playing.
He likes to jam.
He likes to jam with the boys. He can jam with the boys. I had some expectations. Obviously, he had his hits, and those were inescapable. And then I knew I was expecting some licks and some like guitar melodies in there throughout, but I didn't know quite exactly what to expect because obviously I'd never heard a full John Mayer album. But let's get down to it. Drew, how would you describe this album musically overall?
Well, the thing with John Mayer and why I really like him as an artist is his sort of versatility. The thing with him is that he has very, very apparent influences with his soloing. You have the likes of people he has now made it a habit of playing with many a times, your Buddy guys, your BB Kings and such of that nature, your more blues-backed guys. So you see that coming out in his solos here and there, but this album in particular, and I put it on Twitter last night while I was writing my notes, is that it's on the surface a pop record and just a low key a guitar record. There are licks in here that like pass you by and go like, wow, that's sort of like, that's impressive. Like that's crazy, like musicianship. And that was a really cool compositional thing. Contemporaries, people I always like put into like this era of John Mayer and like what he was doing on this and the album after this, Heavier Things. Your Jason Mraz's and your Jack Johnsons and stuff like that. The sort of acoustic-y singer-songwriter kind of stuff. You never sit back to me with them and go, wow, that was a really cool guitar riff. I've never done that on a Jason Mraz song.
Neither have I.
Yeah. Like, it's just sort of like, it's cool, but like, there's something that John Mayer brings as far as musicianship goes that's really surprising, especially on an album like this that's filled with a lot more of like the acoustic pop sort of side of things. And I think it was really a smart way to go, because if he would have came in to popular music, I should say, with an album like Try, with the John Mayer Trio, something that was way more blues focused, I don't think he would have gotten the radio play that he did. But he snuck in that like those twangs of like bluesy influence and that more guitar centric style into a pop record, and he was able to sort of fly it under the radar. I think that forethought to get there is something that's really cool. The hooks on this album that him and Clay Cook come up with are just amazing. Longtime partners in crime, the two of those. And then there's David, I'm going to butcher this dude's last name, Labruyere. I am not nearly French enough to understand how that name is actually pronounced. But just a brilliant session basis that on many of these songs like pops out really, really strong. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about this being his debut record is, yeah, there's a lot of like that pop acoustic singer-songwriter thing coming through, but at the same time you can hear those twangs of influence in the solos from the blues stuff that he's sort of started making with John Mayer Trio and where he goes, and that versatility is just there throughout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. David, how would you describe this album musically?
This is an album where you will hear a lot of acoustic guitar focused pop rock. Yes. The songs are really well written, very concise, and very well done. If I'm a record exec, I'm jumping all over this. The entire package and production, this would sell itself anywhere in any time. But as Drew said and what Squiggles alluded to, there is some real musicality all over this album that you'll hear in various tracks, beyond just writing really solid hooks and writing really solid personal lyrics. The lyrics in the songs are personal without getting too awkward and too cringy and too uncomfortable. I think that there are moments lyrically that are relatable to a lot of people in a lot of ways, and that's credit to John Mayer in making it relatable without being cringy, to use a word that I hate. And again, it goes back to the musical side of it. There are definitely flashes of somebody here that's doing more than just doing just enough to use the phrase 3 chords and the truth. There are flashes that there's more than that here, and I really appreciated that.
Mm-hmm. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
First of all, the dude likes his color chords. There were at least 2 songs that were comprised entirely of major 9 chords, which I never thought I'd get tired of a major 9 chord, but I was like, okay, we can try something else now. Great guitar playing. The lyrics, he's definitely, you can, especially thinking, with the advantage of time, we can see that he was one of those smart guys who, like Drew said, he figured out what kind of songs actually sell albums, made that album a few times, and then he could go on to do whatever he want. Because otherwise they're kind of borderline vapid sometimes. Maybe they're actually deep, and I don't want to admit it, but they kind of remind me of the subreddit I'm 14 and this is deep.
Yeah. That's why I said I can see why people would relate to this. It was just bordering on the edge of cringy, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. It felt like it was everybody's first epiphany. Everybody's, like I said, I'm 14 and this is deep. Like, I just found out there's no such thing as the real world. Yeah. I was like,
yeah.
okay,
Oh my God, that song is still stuck in my head.
Yeah, and like everybody's first attempt at a baby making jam, and your body is a wonderland, and things like that.
Which won a Grammy, I read.
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
That
Best
song?
pop
All the
male
songs.
Your Body is a
All the
Wonderland.
songs on this album?
Best male pop vocal.
Of
Yes.
all the songs on this album, that one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, when you think of it,
Track.
Grammys will usually favor singles, and the 3 singles off of this record were No Such Thing, Your Body is a Wonderland, and Why Georgia, and the biggest one was Your Body is a Wonderland.
Really?
So
I remembered No Such Thing. Like, I wasn't sure where I remembered it, but when I heard it, it was like, okay, I remember that one. But Your Body is a Wonderland.
I
Oh.
definitely remember Your Body is a Wonderland. Like,
Your Body is a Wonderland hit huge.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Let's talk about some. As we talk about some of the tracks. Let's get down to it. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, opening up with the debut single, with No Such Thing. As far as musicality goes, probably one of the songs that, like, if I were to look at like radio pop hits, probably one of my favorites, period. That's modern, relatively modern. Like, let's be honest, I'm Still Standing by Elton John, probably my favorite pop hit of all time. Because Elton John's great. But like, as far as like more modern, I would say that this is probably right up there for me personally. And part of it, I think, is the bass. The bass on this song is just so good. Like, it's just unfair. Like, yeah, the message sometimes gets a little up its own butt. Like, I get that. But, that bass was so good. Your Body is a Wonderland. I will always say this: a guy who will make an acoustic guitar album, or an acoustic-centric guitar album, I should say, is gonna make a song that's specifically so that when he's at a show, he can look at a girl, sing this song, and get them backstage as quickly as humanly possible. This will forever be John Mayer's version of that, and I think that's okay.
There are so many guys out there at college campuses that have learned this song.
Yeah.
It's the new Wonderwall. Like, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like it's the new Wonderwall. It's like this song and like something from Dashboard for your alt rock girls, and like that's it. Like,
Yeah.
Dashboard Confessional, Your Body is a Wonderland. That's all you got. I'm gonna go with City Love as one of the ones I want to touch on too, because the solo in that is an entire groove, and I'm super here for it. And the song to me that, like, I specifically brought this album because of is Neon. And the reason being is, like, Neon, the guitar riff plus the vocal part, and realizing the homeboy does this live, if you listen to the rhythms therein and like you're a musician, you look at that and go, that's gotta suck to try to play live, because he's moving at like 2 different tempos in opposing rhythms, and apparently he like made that song just because he wanted to see if he could do something like that. Like, okay, fine. Like, forget you and everything you stand for. But it's just a great fun song, and that guitar line, that riff in the verse is just something that's just super fun and will always be super fun to me.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
My Stupid Mouth. I just found it to be entertaining and kind of fun. The story, it was a nice little sandwich of a song. It just worked. I feel like that would be as good a single as any. 83. 83. When it kicks in after the second chorus, that's when it really hits. And when you get there, it's a really enjoyable piece. Also, Neon, as Drew said, the hook has a guitar lick that really brings the album into a whole new gear. That song is special. It really, really is. And the aforementioned No Such Thing. When I first heard this song, it was kind of an epiphany, because my knowledge on John Mayer was extremely limited. But when I heard the chorus to this one, it was an epiphany. Just, oh, that's him. Okay. I do know one of his songs. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
No Such Thing. I heard this for the first time years ago, but it was a fingerstyle arrangement by Pete Huttlinger, and then it was like years later that I heard it on the radio, and it's like, oh, that Pete song has lyrics. Who wrote that? And this is the very first example of a lot of major 9 chords, and I like the way the first verse comes in with the drums. It kind of always catches me a little bit off guard, which I like. It's like on the end of 4. Neon, the others pretty much said most of what can be said about it. It's great guitar, which if you start Googling around, everybody talks about how impossible it is to play, which makes me think, okay, I need to figure this out. I bet
Sounds like what
it.
he did. Like, let me see if I can do this.
Yeah.
Yo, dog, like, hold my beer.
Exactly.
And then when he realized he did, it was like, yeah, goddamn right I can.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was me hearing Rancid's Maxwell Murder for the first time. I was like, I've got okay, fine. Like, let me grab my bass.
Challenge accepted.
And then the instrumental on that song, it has this moment where I'm like, this would fit in pretty well if it was a jazz fusion song. Like, as a whole, the song is not jazz fusion, but this one little snippet of the instrumental, it's like, oh, that's cool. And City Love, I love the main riff, just the punch of the bass and the guitar and the drums. It sounds really familiar, and I kind of meant to just go through iTunes and figure out what it was from. I want to say it was Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix, just kind of assuming, but it was also reminiscent of The Weight by the band. And then I was listening the Brett Hibbard Sproing of the Year. Yeah. If I was going to assign it of what I noticed, there's just this little part with a tiny bit of orchestration. It's just like, it's barely there, but oh, there's violins playing pizzicato. All right. And then it's gone.
Yes. Yeah, it's the reason why there's, if you look on the Wikipedia, there's a credit for a cello, 2 cellos, a viola, 2 violins on that for just that track. Like,
yeah.
like,
Just wanted to put everything into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it works.
Because
it's just barely there, but
yeah. I'll you guys have pretty much touched on the key tracks. I will give a shout out. I'll give my own shout out to 83 because this was the year I was born. And also because what sounded like disco flute or something along those lines is like It was like I don't know if it was like the Mellotron or what it was, but that thing that sounded like the disco flute was really fantastic, and it caught my attention. Just kind of like my spring for that song, which is fascinating.
Well, apparently there is a Vibra Slap on 83 as well, so that gets the true Sproing of the year, I guess.
Oh, that's the Vibra Slap.
If we're going strictly by the rules.
One of my notes, guys, is that just about every song on this album has its own little kind of sproing.
Yeah, everything has a little piece of the little things.
Shout out to Brett. To Brett.
There is a Mellotron.
Yeah, there's a Mellotron. I was just trying to figure out
Last two tracks.
Yeah, just not on track 8. I'm trying to be like,
yeah.
That being said, I'll have to figure out what they mean by which number track, or maybe track 7. Maybe. That being said, let's get down to our conclusions on this album. Let's bring it back around the horn. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I was going to ask the question, but Drew already answered it. Why does John Mayer hold back so much? That's the question that I had when I was done with this album. Because this dude seemingly made this album effortlessly with little flashes of very creative ideas here and there. But Drew put it best when he said he made this so his record label would get him on the radio so he could be able to have freedom to do whatever he wants afterwards. I understand that now because I heard this album being a really strong collection of pop rock songs, but I immediately thought this dude is holding back a lot because there was a lot good here and there were really creative moments. And I thought to myself, either this is John Mayer in his embryonic stage and this is just him kind of figuring things out, or this dude is holding back and he eventually in a few years is going to be just making some really genius work. And maybe he has. Maybe I'll look around. Maybe I'll check it out. Judging this album standalone, like I said, every track has its own little sproing. The lyrics are at times not terribly cringy, maybe a little bit, and just very concise. All of the songs are well constructed, and wow, No Such Thing is still in my head, and it is going to be in my head for days. I have been playing it still on repeat, and it is still stuck in my head.
Yes.
I put it in my notes. No Such Thing is earwormy as fuck.
Yeah. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Overall, it's a good album. He's a great guitar player, but I like his later stuff better, and in general, I prefer a little more depth or weirdness with my lyrics. Like it doesn't have to be deep and meaningful, but if it's not that, then make it a little weird. Make me just kind of cock my head and go, wait, what did he just say?
Yes.
Meanwhile, I was just giggling. I was giggling.
I mean, my stupid mouth, it's a pretty good story. I think that's probably the most relatable track on the album.
You want somebody to make you say, "Oh, what did he say?" I can introduce you to some rappers.
I should bring Frank Zappa sometime.
My guitar wants to kill your mama.
I would love to experience that. Yeah, I think overall this is a fun pop rock record that was made as John Mayer's Trojan horse, as Drew basically described. He made it so he can get signed, or he could, so he could get on the radio. And this has the radio jams. But it shows, it peaks, it shows you a little bit of his like talent and skill and what he can do, which he eventually showed more of later on. So it's kind of it's nice to see that in its nascent form, as it were.
I would like to have a fully formed, at full power John Mayer album on the Record Breakers podcast.
Somebody would have to bring that on, so we can look forward to that. Drew, that being said, what would be your conclusion on this album? I can't hear you, Drew.
This is his sort of opening salvo into what John Mayer was going to be. Like I said, the versatility, I think, is something that should not go unnoticed with someone like John Mayer. He can do the record after it, Heavier Things, and then he could be on like the Crossroads Guitar Festival, and then also play with like Dead and Company. Like, the dude is a musician. Like, the dude can just play a mean six string, and he can do it really well. And like, standing next to some of the best that have ever done it, in my opinion, and still like come out looking really good. Also has one of the best musician faces of all time. This dude, like, there's an old joke that sometimes you got to go through pain just to get the note out of a guitar, and he has one of the best.
Oh, he has a guitar face?
Yes.
He is known for his guitar face.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah.
Even better than that, or after you see the guitar face, find the Photoshops where somebody replaced his guitar with a giant slug, and it fits.
Like, it's impressive. But like,
it's like the guitar version of Coming or Drumming. Yeah.
It's great. And that's the thing, is like, I like this because it's easy to swallow. It's easy to sort of digest. But there is also just really good musicianship and really good compositional work on this, that just, if it's just taken as a pop record and sort of pushed to one side, you don't really think about. But like, when you really dive in, you're like, oh no, like, this dude knows what he's doing, and it's kind of crazy. Yeah, the other ones show a lot more like the musicianship for musicians, but the way he was like low key able to add in things like, hey guys, check out this like weird thing I do during Neon. Like, check out the weird ascending and descending like rhythm lines that I'm doing on this, like, at the same time, because like, screw it. Like, it's weird and it's great. And like, dude doesn't get enough credit. Also, dude has a great watch collection, if you didn't know. I'm sort of jealous. Some great vintage Rolex and Omega pieces. But besides the work he does with Hodinkee and Esquire, he also makes really good music that I think should go unnoticed.
I own a Mob Boy Tick Watch E. It's $130.
Oh, one of these.
I bought the cheapest one.
Yeah.
But watches aside, those are our thoughts on John Mayer's Room for Squares. Room for Squares. There's always room for squares, just like there's always room for Jello. Let's get down to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumero numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
Why do I have to go first?
Because you rolled best initiative.
A tight collection. Maybe a little too tight. Strong but safe pop rock.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your haiku?
Room for Squares is good. I like his later stuff more. still a great picker.
Uh-huh. I've been called a great picker as well.
That's what she said.
My haiku. Some good feeling tunes from a gifted guitarist, radio friendly. Now, last but not least, of course, Drew, what is your haiku?
Before I get into my haiku, I was trying to look up good links to show off the guitar face for Deej.
Yeah,
and I remembered that
He's
John...
He's some guitar face guitar.
I was reminded, though, that John Mayer made a great cameo on Chappelle's show.
Yes, he
Was
did.
one of the funnier skits that was ever on that show. So if you haven't seen that, please go see that. That's hilarious.
Yes, you should. It's very funny.
Yeah. Look at the surface. All you will see is pop hooks, but there is more here.
Yeah. There is more here, and you can, of course, listen to what there is there on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Following along at home, do your due diligence and your due diligence as well. Do the thing. Listen along, do your homework. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, where I won't be here. I'll be over there, down there, right over there. It's gonna be a next week's album is gonna be provided by Squiggles, and you'll see that I'll be traveling, or I will have traveled. Kind of doing a little bit of reverse in time. This is another episode we recorded while I was in Texas.
Time travel is confusing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Respect the continuity, PD Rave. Kayfabe, brother.
Like I'm gonna let people believe that I can afford to fly to Austin, fly back, then fly to
Record Breakers
Fort Worth.
is a work, guys. Come on, you're killing the immersion.
Just call me Ronda Rousey. Matt, what will we have discussed next week?
I will have brought Hot Tuna with their album Burgers.
Mm-hmm. Tasty. You can,
Not
of
for
course,
vegans.
No. You can, of course, check that out next week. Over here where you find podcasts everywhere. You can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XTruciferX. Matt is at MRiddickW. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. It's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com, where you can find the show notes and links, including the songs, the Spotify playlist, and as always, Matt's Twitter as well. You can find us everywhere you find podcasts. Rebelli.net for listening to other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube. You can find us iTunes, Stitcher, all over the place. Subscribe, like, share, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Buenos nachos, muchachos.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.